At dawn on October 22, while most of Russia was still shrouded in darkness, a series of encrypted signals from Ukraine's UAV control center simultaneously lit up. A meticulously planned campaign, codenamed Phantom Reach, officially began. At a secret base in central Ukraine, engineers and electronic warfare specialists quietly programmed the latest long-range UAVs. Each carried warheads weighing tens of kilograms, along with Western-made anti-jamming guidance systems. The targets were not the front lines, but the heart of Russian industry. Two key facilities, the Saransk mechanical plant in Mordovia and the Dagestan product oil refinery complex in Dagestan. Both points are located 700 to 860 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, deep within Russian territory. It is a nearly impossible mission, but that is precisely the message Kyiv wants to send. No place is safe if it continues to fuel the war. 2 a.m. Kyiv time. A cold wind cuts through the air on the highlands of eastern Ukraine. Long-range UAVs, codenamed Buravy, the Storm, are pushed onto the makeshift runway by technicians. The faint green signal lights flash, fading as the mini-jet engines start up. The command rings in the headphones. Take off, heading 21 degrees north. Do not deviate more than 10 meters. The UAVs lifted off the ground, climbed to an altitude of 200 meters, then quickly descended to low altitude to evade radar. On the control screen, their flight path looked like a thin thread crossing the map of Russia. A combination of inertial guidance and military GPS systems helped them fly steadily in conditions of strong electromagnetic interference. Kursk, Tambov border. A Russian radar station began detecting strange signals. The alarm sounded, the Pantsir S-1 system was activated, and automatic cannons scanned the sky. But the Ukrainian UAVs did not follow a straight path. They flew in a zigzag pattern, weaving between valleys and residential areas, taking advantage of the low terrain to disappear from the scan. At the Saransk base, night shift workers were still working in the metallurgical workshop of the Saransk mechanical plant, which specializes in producing detonators and artillery shells for Rostec. No one expected that just a few minutes later, the sky would light up. 2:54. The thermal sensor system in the Russian control room detected an unknown object approaching at a speed of 250 kilometers per hour. 5 seconds later, a terrible explosion tore through the air. The shockwave shattered the windows of nearby buildings. A column of fire tens of meters high rose up, turning the entire industrial area red. The fire erupted from the Western factory building, where explosives and sensitive materials were stored. A witness said in a video, "The whole city was as bright as day. I thought it was an earthquake." Meanwhile, 860 kilometers to the south, other UAVs were flying over the Caucasus Mountains. The positioning devices were jammed, but the inertial backup system was still working. The remote pilot, a former aeronautical engineer, breathed heavily over the radio. "Weak signal. I'm adjusting manually. Continuing on course 117. Target within 3 kilometers. 0312. In the sky above Makhachkala, the capital of Dagestan, the lights of the Caspian oil port reflected on the sea. Suddenly, a bright spot rushed towards them, roaring through the wind. A UAV crashed straight into the fuel tank of the Dagestan product complex, causing a huge explosion with shock waves spreading several kilometers. Security cameras captured the moment the fire erupted like a small sun, black smoke billowing toward the sea. Everything shook. I fell to the ground. When I got up, I saw only a sea of fire behind the iron gate. The automatic firefighting system was immediately activated, and dozens of fire trucks were dispatched. However, due to the extreme heat, it took rescue workers more than 2 hours to control the fire. At the same time, Russian air defense command centers in Rostov and Bryansk issued a nationwide emergency alert as radar detected a series of other UAVs crossing Russian airspace. Anti-aircraft guns fired continuously, leaving dozens of streaks of light across the sky. The Russian Ministry of Defense later announced that it had shot down 33 UAVs, but did not explain why the two facilities in Mordovia and Dagestan were still directly attacked. For nearly an hour, dozens of Ukrainian UAVs flew more than 700 to 900 kilometers into Russian territory, evading dozens of radar lines and penetrating multiple layers of defense. This was not just an attack, it was a technological and tactical message. Ukraine has demonstrated its ability to bring precision warfare to anywhere on the Russian map. As the sun rose over the city of Saransk, smoke still curled high above the western industrial zone. Fire trucks and emergency crews remained stationed around the Saransk mechanical plant, once considered the steel heart of Russia's defense industry in the Volga region. The scene resembled an ammunition depot explosion. Collapsed walls, warped metal roofs, shattered glass scattered across the streets. Firefighters, soldiers, and defense engineers worked in silence, trying to extinguish the last embers. There were no casualties. That was the official statement, but local residents said otherwise. We heard 3 consecutive explosions. The whole neighborhood shook. Many people were thrown out of bed. Meanwhile, in Dagestan, black smoke continued to rise from the Dagestan product oil refinery complex near the port of Makashkala. The acrid smell of burning fuel spread throughout the coastal residential area. From a distance, small fishing boats stopped in the bay, silently watching the giant flames reflected on the Caspian Sea, a scene no one ever imagined would happen on Russian soil. Governor Sergei Melikov appeared on local television, his voice calm but strained. The situation is under control. There are no casualties. The damage is being assessed. I urge people not to share information about the attacks on social media. However, satellite images from the independent analysis group Supernova Plus showed that part of the complex's fuel storage area was completely destroyed, with many tanks burned to ashes. Experts believe this was a highly accurate attack, possibly using infrared sensors and a new generation of inertial guidance systems. In the 24 hours following the attack, the Russian Ministry of Defense made no mention of Mordovia or Dagestan, only reporting that air defenses shot down 33 Ukrainian UAVs in the Bryansk, Leningrad, Rostov, and Pskov regions. However, a source from the Russian military telegram channel Rybar admitted some UAVs penetrated the air defense network. This has never happened at such depth. Analysts in Moscow understand the significance of this. Ukraine has opened a new front, the front of long range and psychology. Without deploying troops or expensive cruise missiles, just with homemade UAVs and flexible tactics, they have turned thousands of kilometers of Russian territory into a danger zone. According to preliminary data, the attack on Dagestan Protoproct halted fuel transit operations in the North Caucasus region for at least 48 hours, disrupting the crude oil supply chain to southern Russia. Some rail lines transporting fuel to the Volgograd region were forced to change course. Bloomberg energy experts estimate that nearly 40% of Russia's oil refining capacity has been directly or indirectly affected by UAV attacks from Ukraine over the past 3 months. This has not only caused billions of dollars in material damage, but also hit the financial pillar that fuels Moscow's war. In Kyiv, Ukrainian officials remain silent. There has been no official statement, only a cryptic line on the Defense Ministry's Telegram account. Military experts say the UAV campaign in the early hours of October 22 marks a new turning point in Ukraine's deep war strategy. Instead of spreading its forces across the front lines, Kyiv is focusing on strategic targets, energy, manufacturing, and transportation, forcing the enemy to thin out its defenses across the territory. The strikes on Mordovia and Dagestan, two regions once considered absolutely safe, have shattered Russia's sense of invincibility. Each plume of smoke rising from a factory or oil depot is not just material damage, but a crack in the public psyche. On October 22nd, the escalating situation between Ukraine and Russia continued to attract global attention when U.S. President Donald Trump officially denied reports that Washington had allowed Kyiv to use long-range weapons to attack deep into Russian territory. During a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte at the White House, Trump stated clearly, "I didn't do that. They don't use our missiles." He emphasized that the missiles used by Ukraine may have come from Europe or other sources, but were not under U.S. control. This statement came just one day after the Wall Street Journal published an article claiming that the U.S. government had lifted restrictions on the use of long-range weapons, allowing Ukraine to carry out deep strikes into Russian territory. On the Truth Social platform, Trump continued to insist that it was fake news, asserting that the U.S. has nothing to do with those missiles, regardless of where they come from or what Ukraine does with them. Meanwhile, on October 21, the Ukrainian General Staff announced that it had carried out a large-scale attack with Storm Shadow long-range missiles supplied by the UK, targeting Russia's Bryansk chemical plant, a strategic industrial target in the west of the country. According to military sources, the Storm Shadow has a range of 250 to 560 kilometers, flies at extremely low altitudes at high speeds, and is designed to penetrate dense air defense systems. Notably, although the Storm Shadow is a British product, its guidance system and target sensors are still based on intelligence and orbital data developed by the US, according to analysis by CNN. This has led international observers to ask, is the disengagement that Mr. Trump referred to truly absolute? Analysts note that Ukraine's deployment of Storm Shadow just days after a series of deep UAV strikes into Mordovia and Dagestan indicates a new strategy is emerging, combining low-cost, long-range UAVs with high-precision cruise missiles to create dual pressure, both on the enemy's energy resources and their psychological resolve. While the U.S. tries to maintain a politically neutral stance, the actual battlefield shows that Western weapons, directly or indirectly, are changing the balance of power in this war. And now, the question is President Donald Trump's statement truly separating the U.S. role from the conflict? Or is it just a diplomatic move to avoid escalating tensions with Russia? What do you think about Ukraine increasingly expanding its attacks deep into Russian territory? Is this the right strategic move? Or is it a dangerous line that could drag the West into the conflict? Share your opinion in the comments section below, because each of your perspectives helps us better understand the real picture unfolding in this modern war.